Now let's look at some of the examples by an execute Plotviz. So let's go to our Plotviz file, which are here, and let's look at cube. So here we have cube. You will notice a lot, these are Plotviz files. Sometimes they're text files and sometimes they're so-called pviz files. Pviz files are XML format, and they allow you to express a lot more information, like detailed coloring information. Text files just allow you to express the coordinates and label clustering and label information. They do not allow any very sophisticated properties. You can read in a text file into Plotviz and then save it in pviz after maybe you've done some coloring. Other times we actually make our programs automatically output in pviz format so we can get a richer plot without a lot of human intervention. All right, so we found a cube in our list of files. Because it's a .text and not a .pviz, it won't open immediately in Plotviz, so we drag it on top of the pviz program, and it will then open. We make it larger, and we have, you can hardly see them, 8 points here. We'll make those 8 points a little bigger so they're easier to see. We do that by finding where point is defined here. And here it is. It's on the plot. It says the point size is 2, so let's bump it up. We have it up at 9. We can also change the color. Easiest way to change the color is to select all the points. And well, actually, why don't we just select the cluster 0? Those are the ones with z equals not. And we'll change its color to some purple thing. You can see you have 4 purples here. Then we'll take the ones which have cluster 1, and we'll change that color to be yellow. There we are. Now I show how we rotate it. Here I am just have my have my mouse down, and I'm just dragging my mouse on the trackpad of my laptop. And then if I drag it up, we do a rotation this way. If I drag it this way, we do a rotation that way. If I do control mouse, then I do a nice rotation, clean rotation like that. Another useful thing we can do is look at the labels. If you remember, the labels were P1 through P8. To make the labels visible, we set that to be true in this sidebar here. And then we have to actually click these points or mouse over them. And then they will all appear, the labels. They're not very big. So now we have labels, and we can again rotate them in any way we like. We can drag, we can move the center. We can do that in a couple of ways. If we press C up here, we can make the center up there. That's one way of moving the center. And alternatively, we just press Shift, and we can also move it in that fashion. The other thing we can do is to the right mouse. With the right mouse, we can change we can do the same thing we can do with the mouse wheel. We can change the size of the plot. So we can now make the plots smaller or larger as we want. Those are the basic operations for manipulating the plot. We may not like the title. We can call it, say, Silly Cube. Here's a new title. That's the title thing. We can remove the title by making visible false, but then we can make it true again. And of course, we can change the color of the title, and we can remove these axes in the middle. The axes in the middle are okay for this case because it's a cube, but it's not always useful. So we could change the background. Here's the background is covered black. We can make it gray. There we are. Then now you can't really see it very well at all. Let's go back to a dark color. Just tear dark blue. Well, that's sort of okay. And then we can rotate again. Another useful thing is the legend. That's for telling people how many clusters there are. We can make the legend true, and it just produces and it's set for the upper left for certain sizing, and it just tells you we have cluster 0 with 4 and cluster 1 with 4 members, a total of 8 points in this plot. Not so interesting, so we can get rid of this. If you want to change things like change upper left to lower right, you do that, and then you just make it visible again, and the thing will change. So that's illustrates a lot of the basic operations of Plotviz with this example. Let's get rid of that example. Let's now look at some other examples. Here we have what we have here, which is the simple input example, which is the result of probably GTM, is either in pviz or text. In this case here, they're essentially the same. In that previous case, I forgot for the cube.txt, I put all sorts of fancy things in there. I could, if I wanted to, I've actually saved it as a file. When there will be a pviz file, and it would have saved the things like the different colors for each cluster and things like that. So let's now look at these two other examples: the simple input and the proteomics example. So let's use, if we use the pviz, then when we click it, it will open. This is a rather bigger file. It takes a little while on my laptop to open. Here we are. So you can see it's actually got quite a bit of structure. In this particular case, it's been divided into 2 clusters beforehand in some fashion, and which are labeled red and blue. The 2 clusters are up here. We could record what the clusters are by going to the legend and making that true. So we have 17. This must have had 100,000 points to begin with. It has around 17,000 over here, and 82, almost 83,000 of these red ones. Here's an example where there's a thing in the middle. The axes aren't terribly useful, so we get rid of those. And we can do our things like rotating it. Look at this structure, because some of this structure is really only seeable. When you browse it in 3 dimensions, there's obviously quite a non-trivial clustering, which is actually, and there's really more than 2 clusters in this particular problem. So you've learned by visualizing it that probably your clustering algorithm didn't find enough clusters. And for this case, if we'd use the .text, we'd get the same answer, because the XML file did not specify any new information.